My name is Chris Losch. I am the regional safety specialist for Milwaukee Tool, covering what we call the Mid-Atlantic, which is Virginia's, Carolinas, and Georgia. Uh, Basically, what I am is I'm here to kind of help you through tool and PPE safety, kind of help train on anything in that aspect. I've gone through a number of trainings. I've been with Milwaukee Tool for about 10 years. And as we started really seeing all the innovation, you guys have seen everything we've done with our tools. I'm sure you guys have at least seen the advertisements we got out on them. What we found is a lot of the different stuff we did with tools was around safety. So we started looking at how we could innovate on that side. And somebody, especially at PHDC, sees this as a huge help. And like we've worked nationally with PHDC on this for sure. Just on like different kind of health and safety trainings when it comes to tools, and PPE is another aspect that we've added to that. So today I'm going to kind of talk through what the hierarchy controls is, kind of give you a good idea when you're thinking of hazards on a job site or working day to day in however aspect you work. What hazards you run into and kind of different ways you can kind of mitigate that risk of that hazard. And then I'll go over some specifics on some PPE, really focus on gloves, glasses, and tool lanyards, some of the biggest ones out there that can apply to everything everyone here does. Kind of talk through that. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about our stuff, but really it's more focused on overall arching thoughts on it. So for the breakout rooms, I kind of wanted you guys to start thinking, getting that mindset of what hazards you run into every day. When you're out there working, it could be cut hazards, it could be slips, trips, and falls, something like that. Just whatever kind of hazard you think you run into or your employees run into on an everyday front, and what you guys kind of do to mitigate that risk. Whether non-slip shoes is one way of doing it, wearing hand protection is another way if it's a cut, but just kind of what hazards you run into, and just a different way of thinking about it than we normally think about hazards on a site. Just to kind of, when I go into my talk, you can kind of bring that into it and come with any questions you do have. So I appreciate the time, and that's kind of the question. So, all right, cool. So I'll get into this, kind of what I'm going to talk through today. I introduced a little bit and why I had you talk about hazards. When you broke off is the hierarchy controls. I talked about it in my group a little bit, but I'll get deeper into that. Kind of a good way as you guys are going through it, just to always think about different ways of mitigating risk on a site. Then, like I talked about, I'll touch on gloves, glasses, and lanyards, tool lanyards a little bit here. And then at the end, talk about a couple of the Milwaukee solutions, but really overall, just updates to kind of the standards that are out there. So as you're looking for that PPE for your company, you know exactly what you should be looking for. So can anyone kind of tell me in the breakout room that they had what a hazard came up with, and kind of what the solution that they do every day is?
Well, we talked about ladders being on roofs and obviously falling of those. So just different techniques on either shoes that are meant for roofs or harnesses with, and I'm talking about residential, by the way. So this is being on inclines and tying off ropes across the house or through the house.
That makes sense. Yeah. So if you look at that's a great example of hazard that can definitely lead to an injury on a site. So with the hierarchy controls here, what it is basically a way of looking at different hazards on site and the way you can mitigate that risk. So obviously at the top here, you eliminate the hazard completely and completely remove that risk from happening and that injury. That's obviously the most effective, reliable solution. And down here at the bottom with PPE, it's something we wear every day to protect ourselves, but really it's the least effective, least reliable, because all it's doing is allowing the hazard to happen and just protecting you when the hazard actually happens. So this is a way of thinking about it as you go through a specific hazard. If you have a number of recordables on it, or it's just something that comes up that people in the field have come up, or even in our group, we talked about office stuff, just sitting at your desk all day, how that can lead to repetitive use injuries, and just kind of the stuff you can do to eliminate that from going on. But in that example of kind of tying off the roof, that would be considered like an engineering control. Basically coming in and changing, creating something to prevent that risk from happening or that injury from happening. So this is just a cool way of thinking about it. If you think about it in a tools aspect, because a lot of people, this is something that can really kind of, obviously I know that well working for Milwaukee, but everyone can kind of think about it in that way, especially with you, what do you guys do a lot of the time, like plumbing applications, a little bit there, or even HVAC applications, going from sweating to press. That is one way you completely eliminate the hazard of having a open flame on the work site you're at. That is one way you can completely eliminate the hazard. Substituting would be taking something like going from using a copper tubing cutter, a hand copper tubing cutter, to an M12 kind of copper tubing cutter, something that's taking your hand away from the actual solution. You're substituting, replacing the hazard. There's still a hazard that could possibly happen with that new thing you're substituting for, but you're lessening that original risk that you had out there. Something like an engineering control is something you're placing within whatever you're using. We just talked about, great example, tying off those ladders up there, or adding the shoe for the ladder if you're on an incline. In that aspect, you're engineering a solution to prevent that hazard from happening. What we're doing today would be an example of administrative control, training, something like that, where we also talked about it in my breakoff group, we talk about a lot of the times, the most injuries you see when it comes to people actually in the field on sites, working every day, is in the first 90 days. You see the most injuries as they're learning the processes, as they're learning the new solutions they're doing. So having a mentor kind of take them along for those first 30, 60, 90 days, and really teaching them what's going on, that'd be an example of administrative control. And then obviously PPE, something that the person is actually wearing, personal protective equipment to prevent them from the hazard. All the four above that is really preventing the hazard from happening in total, which is a much more reliable, sustainable way of reducing that risk of injury. But at the end of it, the PPE does protect you and is something necessary to move forward and really make this solution whole. So kind of, I really wanted to introduce this. This is a really great way of thinking through this as you guys are going through your safety teams, talking about any different risks or anything like that. Just bringing this and kind of thinking about this in an aspect like this. How can we first eliminate it, substitute it, engineer it out, administrative controls, or a PPE solution to really prevent that risk moving forward. And if you guys need a refresher on this, I'm sending this out just so you have it in front of you. But also you can just Google search hierarchy controls. It's a really big, there's a lot of talking points on it. If you want much more detail on this, I'm going to get into some other parts of it, but it's something really great to kind of look at. Before I move on, did anybody have any questions about this specific part of the hierarchy controls? Because I think this is very important. Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, at the end of this too, I'll have my contact info with a couple other people with Milwaukee contact info. If you want us to get more in depth with this, happy to come do a training at your specific place of work on this as well. So cool. So I'm going to get into cut gloves first off, kind of talk about that, as that is a big portion of what everyone kind of does. Gloves, hand, it's one of the top recordables that are out there, is just cuts, specifically around the hand area. So using cut gloves is one way of doing that. I'm sure a lot of you have adopted a certain cut level or are looking at it or require at least some kind of gloves for people to wear. So in the past couple of years, they have updated. ANSI and ISEA have updated the ratings and what they mean. So I want to make sure you guys are fully up to date on this, so you can not get tricked, because there's some people out there that are trying to trick people at a certain cut level using the European standard versus the American standard, which is incorrect to look at. So just an update. So originally, ISEA had a standard. It went from cut level 1 to cut level 5. That they had a certain test that would break it out. The cut 5 was kind of the catch-all for anything above it, but it really didn't break down as neatly into different applications people are using. The new standard, the new ANSI standard that came out in 2016, really ensures the right glove for the right job, going from an A1 to an A9. And this is based off of, if you want more information, you can kind of look it up and I'll send it out after, exactly what the applications for what cut level are really supposed to be used for. But this is one way where America actually is far superior to Europe when it comes to a standard on a cut glove system, because Europe is still using an older kind of ISEA standard. And I'll go into the test in a second on why it doesn't work so well. But basically, an example of this is our A3 glove in America. A3, if it has A in front of it, that means it's the ANSI standard, the new ANSI standard you want to look at. Some people may call their glove, like this, an example of a glove that's a cut 5 in the European standard, but only an ANSI cut 3 here in America. So you want to be looking for that ANSI standard when it comes to it. I'll talk about why in a second. All gloves have the European standard on it because people still want to look at that, because that includes abrasion, tear, and puncture as well. People like to look at that. But this cut level, when it comes to the European standard, is not up to spec of kind of what our standard is. And the reason for that is the two different tests. So the European standard is done used the coupe test, which is a spinning blade that, as the test goes through, the blade actually dulls out. So really anything that's tested above a cut 3 in the European standard isn't reliable. The ANSI standard uses a more blade that has a vertical force on it, and the amount of weight on the blade determines the cut level. This gives it a way so that the blade isn't dulling out, and it's a much more reliable test to get out there, which is kind of what we want and why people have gone to that ANSI standard and kind of looking at that. Some other things you'll see with cut gloves, you'll hear people say the material made out of nitrile versus polyurethane. There's a couple other ones, latex, some other things out there, but really nitrile and polyurethane are the two most common. So when you're looking at your glove selection, these are kind of the things to think about while you're purchasing. When dry grip, they're about the same amount of grip. There's no real difference when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to wet grip, this is why a lot of people do choose the nitrile. On a wet, oily surface, the nitrile is going to perform much, much better than the polyurethane will. The polyurethane is going to start to slip and you won't be able to grip stuff as well. So this is where people have really choose the nitrile over the polyurethane. When it comes to adhesives, this is not, neither of these two gloves are the right choice. You want to go with something more like a latex or a different material, and I can kind of help out with that if you're something specific, but these are both not great when it comes to adhesives. The durability of the polyurethane holds up more. What most people don't realize is that the material it's made out of, or the nitrile and polyurethane, is this rubber part in the beginning, or not rubber, but the nitrile rubber looking. This is not the cut level. The cut level is actually built into the material that the glove is built out of. This is just here for grip. So if this starts to wear away, your glove is still cut resistant. This material right here is just for kind of grip and picking stuff up. So you don't have to worry if you start to see some of that wear away. Your glove is still cut resistant, still good, until you actually have a hole in your glove that you can see through the material the glove is made out of, at that point is no longer cut resistant. And that's kind of, some people will start throwing away gloves as soon as that material is out there. If you're not getting the correct grip, sure, go ahead and move on to the next one, but the glove is still cut safe at that point. And that's where the polyurethane will hold up a little bit more compared to the nitrile in that aspect. But when you're looking at comfort, and this is a big thing that people will talk about, is dexterity if they're forced to wear cut gloves, especially in an industry that's a little more technical, like you guys all face being part of the PHCC, that you're going to want the best comfort to be able to pick up the small nuts and bolts that you're using every day. Make sure you can do everything to kind of get done. So the nitrile is a little more, adds that little more dexterity, a little more comfort than the polyurethane will, based off of that. Any questions so far on cut gloves? Awesome. I can get a lot more into depth on cut gloves. I can speak for the entire hour on them. I just wanted to kind of go over some basics up front. Like I said, reach out to me after if you want me to go into more detail on exactly what you do and the right cut glove for your application, but wanted to keep it kind of this presentation more to 20 minutes so we can kind of get through everything and kind of have time for questions at the end. So I'll move on to glasses now. So safety glasses are one of those things that everyone wears and everyone knows to wear, but they don't wear all the time, and that's where you can kind of run into issues. So kind of the two standards that are out there is the ANSI Z871. If it's not ANSI Z871, just the basic level of protection, you're not wearing safety glasses that are really suitable for any kind of job. I mean, this is at home or on a job site. It really needs to make sure it's Z81 standard. That's the basic occupational standard. You see a lot of glasses out there that are Z81 plus that are more compliant to some of the higher tests that are out there. Those are really gloves that will protect you a lot more from any kind of projectile coming towards the glasses or towards the face. Really help protect the eyes in that aspect. And then some of the highest end gloves out there will have a ballistic military grade to them that will really make sure, really protect against any of the projectiles that are out there. So it's kind of like the step up, Z81 plus, Z871, Z871 plus, and then a military ballistic kind of class 1 are the 3 different levels you'll see out there. Just be able to survive those kind of tests. And then the type of lenses you guys will run into: clear for inside work, tinted for outside work, and then a gray yellow for kind of inside outside. Make sure the gray is spec'd correctly. The lower end ones may not be more tinted than they actually are grade, which a lot of sites don't allow. Depends on your safety team that you're putting together. And that's kind of something I can kind of talk over what makes sense for you as well. And then polarized are going to be on the very top end, really reduce glare and high contrast areas. That's really if you're working outside all day, working in the summer, where you may get that sun shining right into your eyes, you may want to go with a polarized lens, but that's really specific to certain applications that you would need that. I'll kind of get into some features that a little bit later when I talk about fogless versus anti-fog and different things like that. But that's kind of just some standards to look at when you're looking at glasses. Just double check the glasses you're buying are at least Z871 rated, and you should be good to roll. Tool lanyards. So this is something that's been coming more and more as you guys, certain sites, especially if you're not doing as much residential work, will start requiring 100% tie off when it comes to tools. And this is becoming on larger sites, and you'll see it kind of moving down. I'll talk about the OSHA standard in a second. There's no actual OSHA standard on this yet, but there's an ANSI standard, and I'll talk about why that matters. But why this is becoming more and more of a thing as we move into it. about every 11 minutes, there's an injury by a dropped object on some kind of working around, whether it's on a job site, whether it's just around any kind of work that's going on. There's a recordable drop injury, and about 5% of those end in a fatality. Or sorry, dropped objects count for about 5% of fatalities at the workplace, which is a sizable amount. And the average cost of a injury due to a dropped object is about $42,000. So there's a lot of money that's spent on this and a lot of time, and unfortunately a lot of death due to dropped injuries on sites. And what has that led to? So currently there is no OSHA regulation around requiring any specific tool lanyards or 100% tie off on sites, but there's OSHA talking about if you commonly have issues with dropped objects on a site, they're going to cite you for that due to the general duty clause, which they can do a lot of the time. When you talk about OSHA's Fatal 4, it's number 3 on that. And since there's been an ANSI standard that's now set that talks about exactly what kind of tie off happens. So when I'm talking about 100% tie off, I'm talking everything but the person. So right now there's obviously an OSHA standard around working a certain place above where you have to tie yourself off, but this is everything else that is on the person, whether it's power tools, tape measures, cell phones, whatever it is. Certain sites are going more and more to that due to this ANSI standard. And it really talks about anchors, tool attachments, tool tethers, containers. And if you have a number of recordables with falling objects, OSHA is going to start looking at that a little bit more closely and using that general duty clause. And I'd see in the next couple of years there may be something a little bit deeper on this. I can't say anything exactly. I don't know what OSHA is thinking, but it's something to think about and continue, especially if you have those, if you've had those issues before. And that's something I can help out with as well, helping you come up with a plan on this if this is something that makes sense for you guys. So I'm going to get into some Milwaukee solutions here in a second, but does anybody have any general questions about what I talked about when it comes to gloves, glasses, or tool lanyards? Perfect. Cool. So I'm going to kind of talk about when it comes to gloves, some of the more frustrations people have when it comes to gloves. I kind of talked about cut level and that nitrile versus poly difference in what they're doing. You see those in high stress areas. They wear out very quickly. Kind of what we've done is added a reinforced nitrile coating the inside of our both our poly and some of our nitrile gloves as well. It's just that double layered because it's right in between thumb crotch right there. That's where most people who have gloves, who wear gloves a lot, you'll see that kind of wear out. And that's something we've kind of added to kind of help and assist with that. We've added Smart Swipe to our gloves. Obviously, when it comes to both glasses and gloves, and I'll talk about glasses in a second, the most injuries you'll see with both of them is because somebody takes them off. They're useless, obviously, if you're not wearing them. That's the point of actually wearing them. And one of the reasons people take off gloves a lot is with smartphones. A lot of them aren't compatible with the touchscreen. So even if it's like one of your guys getting a call from the office or something like that, takes it off, answers the call, then goes right back to work, but forgets to put his glove back on, that's where you could see an injury kind of happening. So adding that Smart Swipe, it's not going to allow the person to like play a game on their phone or anything like that, but it allows them to answer a call, text, get that simple job done without having to take off their glove, so that they won't have to remember to then put the glove back on or even get injured just holding their phone. So it's something nice we've got in all of our gloves. And then the high gauge as well. Something I didn't talk about before is because I didn't want to get too deep in the minutia of it, but gauge is really what dictates the dexterity of a glove. It basically is the amount of times the glove is like basically the high as best the glove is made. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but the higher the gauge, basically the higher dexterity when it comes to it. So poor dexterity leads to not being able to get the job done very well. So a higher gauge, and we've kind of added that into our gloves, a much higher gauge in our glove. When it comes to the glasses, we've actually got a full fog free, and this has become a big deal with everyone having to wear masks on job sites, fogging of gloves, glasses. And like when I said with gloves, people take their glasses off when they get fogged, and now you're not protected. If you're not wearing it correctly, you're not protecting yourself. So having that solution is very important to making sure the person is protected throughout. So we have anti-fog and fog-free. There is a difference between the two of them. Anti-fog, you'll see a resistance to fog, and then there is a fog-free solution, which is kind of built into the glove. Anti-fog is usually baked onto it. So the amount of times you wipe it off, or the longer you wear the gloves or glasses or use the glasses, that anti-fog will wear away. Well, fog-free is actually made into the actual lens itself, so that lens will not fog up. And you can really tell the difference. A good test to do this on is throw some safety glasses in a freezer on a really hot day, then walk outside, and you'll tell immediately which glasses are good and which glasses don't hold up those solutions. So especially with everyone wearing masks right now, and who knows how much longer that's gonna be required, depending on your company, everything like that. It's a good thought to start switching over to a high fog free or a high anti-fog solution, just to make sure your guys are keeping their glasses on and remaining safe day in, day out. We also have military grade protection on a lot of our glasses, and a high scratch resistance as well. Same deal with scratch resistance. Obviously, military grade is going to protect their eyes a little more. Scratch resistant, they're going to be able to see through those glasses more, so they're not going to be taking them off. I know tool lanyards, a lot of you guys probably haven't adopted these yet, because some of you probably have if you're on larger job sites that require them, or maybe protecting your guys have dropped a lot of tools in the past. You want to kind of protect them, or have had injuries and want to go away from it. So there's a couple features we have in ours that really kind of help out, but it's stuff you should look for. And if it's ours or anybody's you're purchasing, there's features basically to keep the person productive, which I'll talk about in a second, and start off with keep them safe. So we've got the best shock absorption out there. A higher shock absorption is just really great, especially tying off or making sure that tool doesn't swing away or swing back up when it's dropped. It protects both the lanyard and the tool and anybody working around them. And it gradually slows the tool instead of just stopping and then springing back up or something like that. Double locking carabiner is part of the new ANSI standard. So if you have tool lanyards and are using lanyards and you're not using a locking carabiner, this actually goes against the ANSI standard, which means you'd probably get written up more for breaking the ANSI standard versus not having tool lanyards at all, according to OSHA and the way it works out. If there is a regulation out there, OSHA is going to hold you to that regulation if you're using that solution, versus if they don't have anything kind of talking about it, they can't hold you to not using it at all. So it's this weird kind of thing that OSHA does, but you have to meet at least the ANSI standard if you're using them, and part of that ANSI standard is the locking carabiner to make sure the tool can't slide off if dropped. And then we've added color-coded weight ratings, so you can kind of see the weight ratings from far away and easily identify, make sure they're using the correct lanyard on the correct tool. Stuff we've kind of added to stay productive, because tool lanyards get in the way. People don't like using them, so we've made it so that the tool lanyards won't get in the way and kind of keep everyone still productive. Integrated tool swivel at the top of there, so the lanyard won't get, as you're moving the tool around, doing whatever, moving your phone, moving your tape measure, the carabiner is going to swivel, make it easier, and won't get all tangled up. Quick lock system to put on smaller hand tools and smaller things. You can kind of swap them out if they're on the ground or on the belt. Throw a couple on the tool lanyard, fast tool connection, and then For those large job site, we have serialized tags so you know exactly whose lanyard is who, using our integrated one key system, which I can definitely talk about a lot more one-on-one if that's something you're interested in, not just one key for lanyards, but one key tools. It's integrated tool tracking, tool reporting, and tool customization that I'm sure some of you guys have heard about, but I can definitely go into more in depth another time on that. So appreciate all your time. I know you guys, the partnership, probably have heard about Milwaukee. Maybe we've even worked with you guys in the past, but just so you know, I'm sure I'll work with Stephanie to get this out there. For each of you, we've got 6 direct contacts you can reach out to just in the Carolinas alone. We have a specific mechanical plumbing person, Caitlin, probably not as much for you guys, but she does specifically electrical. Then their manager, Stephen Yarber, who covers specific area. And then we have specific product specialists as well, obviously. Myself for safety, we have Avery Nelson, who does advanced tools. So like if you guys use any press, anything like that, he can really kind of help you talk through the harder areas of that and really kind of help you guys bring in. And then we have a new solution with Sarah, who really focuses on accessories and hand tools, kind of getting you guys the best solutions for what you're doing there at the best pricing as well. So we've got a lot of people out there. If you guys do trainings, we're happy to come out there, train, anything like that. We want to bring value to what you do every day is kind of what our job is, especially on the user focused side. So we really I appreciate the time today. I hope it was informative and kind of helped you guys out in preparing kind of how you go forward with some of these different safety things. I hope to be invited back and kind of talk about some more stuff, but I wanted to keep it high level. So before I go, anybody have any questions about anything I went over today? Anything I can help you guys out with?
All right.
Hey, Chris, real quick, Brown Brothers Plumbing in Durham.
Yep.
Any way we can get a copy of this, of information that's on this screen, like just this page of numbers or this presentation to give to my safety officer or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll send it over to Stephanie if you want to send it out to the group, if that's okay with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. If anybody else doesn't have any questions, Chris, thank you so much for giving this talk today. And for those members who do not know already, we are rolling out, we started at the end of last year, a safety action committee. And so with the new website rollout, we're adding a page. And the rollout day is supposed to be at the beginning to end of March. And on this page, there'll be a ton of resources so you make sure that your business is compliant, as well as a safety quiz. And so no matter the size of your business, you'll be able to take that quiz and see where you're compliant and where you're not. And in places where you're not, you'll be provided with resources to help you become compliant. So, and Chris is actually serving on that team because he is our OSHA friend. So he's helping us to kind of gather information for that page, as well as audit it when we're done. So you guys are the first ones to kind of know about it. It'll be officially announced probably in our March newsletter with a link if you guys want to check that out. And there'll be, a recognition for participating in the taking of that quiz because we want our members to be educated and safe. So does anybody have any questions, comments? All right. I will send out this recording as well as the contact information for Chris, and they're actually going to do a PPE drawing for people that participated in this as well. So the winner will be announced in that email as well. Anyway, you all have a great day, and thank you for joining our networking and education talk today.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chris.
everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.